What is the thing that stops people pursuing their dreams?
I think most people haven't been given a proper education. The truth is the only way you get rich is to need it, not just want it. That's why I'm successful, because at 15 years old, I had no parent that would look after me. I had no way of getting a job. I had no choice but to make a business work. No choice. Stop being in fear mode, stop being in I can't pay my bills mode, and move into, wow, I could do anything with my life mode. And all it took was 100 quid where I promised to be their first customer. Every person listening to this podcast should just question everything. Don't ever accept what I say, what you guys say, what anyone says as truth. What I do to figure out if anything is true, most of the time I just follow the money. Money will tell you where most things are true.
In a world where entrepreneurship is often glamorized, where hustle culture reigns supreme, and where overnight success stories dominate headlines, there's one voice that cuts through the noise with brutal honesty and refreshing authenticity. That voice belongs to Simon Squibb.
Simon's journey is far from conventional. At 15, he found himself without a home, without support, and with no choice but to make it on his own. Fast forward to today, Simon is a serial entrepreneur, an investor and mentor who's built and sold multiple businesses, including a multi-million-dollar agency.
But what sets Simon apart isn't just his success, it's his mission. While many successful entrepreneurs retreat into their wealth, Simon has chosen a different path.
He's the man you might have seen on social media, walking the streets, asking strangers about their dreams, and handing out money to help make those dreams a reality. Is it a gimmick, a publicity stunt, or is there something deeper at play?
In today's episode, we'll explore the philosophy behind Simon's unconventional approach to helping aspiring entrepreneurs. We'll discuss why he believes the education system is fundamentally broken when it comes to teaching business skills. And we'll unpack his controversial views on fame, purpose, and what it really takes to succeed in business.
Ladies and gentlemen, Simon Squibb.
Simon.
No, I like it. Go on.
Yeah. Simon, everyone knows you nowadays as the guy that goes around asking, what is your dream? We know you as the man that hands out money on the street. But what is the thing that stops people pursuing their dreams?
Belief in themselves most of the time. People just don't believe enough in themselves for whatever reason. They've let self-sabotage creep in, and they haven't realised they're capable of anything. They've been told maybe by someone they're not capable of certain things. The school system has trained them to think that there's certain things they're not good at, and to focus on the things they're not good at has probably brought them down even further. And most of the time they just think the system's too hard to break, and so they don't even try.
How do you give people more belief? Because actually I think, there is one thing I really agree with you on, especially, which is people need confidence. And that isn't so obvious how to teach confidence. It's kind of like a life experience thing, but people do need opportunity. How do you actually teach that? If you could do a masterclass on anything, I think that could be a really interesting one.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time knowledge helps you have more confidence. Once you understand how things work, like financial literacy, once you understand how money works, you can have more confidence to make certain decisions. I think most people haven't been given a proper education. That's simply it. Once you understand how the basics work, you have more confidence. I know I do. Once I understood how money works, once I understood how sales work, once I understood how marketing worked, then I am more confident to go and execute on it. So it's all really down to education, knowledge.
Yeah, but if more knowledge was the answer, everyone would be a billionaire with six packs. Like, frankly, you can get everything you need on YouTube.
Teaches everything.
Podcasts are free. There's so much free stuff. You can't, I wanted to learn about money as well a couple of years ago. And I literally listened to podcasts and watched some YouTube stuff on personal finance. It's all available for free. I didn't pay for anything, and I learned tons. It's
a step-by-step process. You asked me what is the first step to having more confidence. I see it as steps. That's why I bought a staircase in Twickenham. Everything is steps, right? The first step is knowledge. Of course, the truth is lots of people want it. Everybody listening to this podcast wants a six-pack, wants to be rich. But the truth is the only way you get rich is to need it, not just want it. So the truth is most people need to take that second step after they've got the knowledge and get away from just wanting it and needing to need it. And that's like the Vikings used to call it, like burning the boats. They used to get somewhere and then they burn the boats that got them there. They've got no choice but to make it work. That's why I'm successful, because at 15 years old, I had no parent that would look after me. I had no way of getting a job. I had no choice but to make a business work. No choice. Otherwise, I would starve. And I think that's the key. You've got to make your want to be successful and turn it into a need to be successful. It's all framework in your brain. It's all mindset, but a lot of people don't do that.
So then it kind of sounds like what you need to teach is hunger.
You need to teach controlling your mind, really. I mean, hunger is part of it.
Should we get Darren Brown in next then?
There are some people that make it who aren't hungry, but they've perhaps got a purpose bigger than themselves, for example. It's the same reason that nurses haven't gone on strike for 150 years until recently. They don't go to work, someone dies. They don't go to work, someone's in pain. It's certainly not for the pay, right? It's because that want to go to work it's more a need to go to work. If they go to work, someone has a better life. They're more comfortable. They don't die. So people need to go and move from wanting to be successful to needing to be successful.
I am one of your biggest fans, and I love the message. And I think that needing to be successful is a very interesting reframe. But how does it tie with the idea of giving people money? As in, I think that sometimes I look at it, I think this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. But then I sometimes think, is giving someone money gonna, to some extent, remove a bit of their hunger in learning how to make that first?
Yeah, like
five.
How hard was it for you to make your first $5,000, for example?
It was a hell of a lot harder than making first $5,000 nowadays, yeah. So yeah, and I feel like maybe the struggle and the strife of that taught me a lot.
I think survival bias is partly what you're talking about there. What worked for you might not work for someone else, right?
For sure.
And there are people out there right now that are literally in fight or flight mode. They can't even pay their electricity bill tonight. There's no, I would like to make $5,000. They've got to feed their 2 kids. They're working 2 jobs. They can't keep the electricity on tonight. They don't have $5,000 to make. You know, they don't have, their brain is literally in survival mode. And when people are in that sort of state, they don't think logically. So if someone tells me their dream and I tell them it's possible, their brain will not let them even think it's possible.
Yeah.
So when I give them money and become their first customer, and by the way, the maximum I've ever given someone is 25,000. Other than Dan, or people I've invested in businesses, that's a much larger amount. But personally giving someone, the maximum I'm given is £25,000. But I've also given most people £100, £200, and I've been their first customer.
Yeah.
Because what that does is it unlocks fight or flight in people's brains and takes it to the creative part of your brain that makes you realise it's possible. So that money is symbolism. £200 isn't going to change someone's life, you could argue, from an income point of view, but it does make people think, oh, I want to be a designer. And someone's just hired me to be their designer. And now I've got a client. So look how quickly we did that in the 30 seconds from the time I meet them on the street to reality. And that wakes up people's brains. I've seen it in their eyes. I've seen their eyes come alive. People literally like stop being in fear mode, stop being in I can't pay my bills mode, and move into, wow, I could do anything with my life mode. And all it took was £100 where I promised to be their first customer.
Do you think there's more that the world, society, school needs to do to build that belief part earlier?
Well, I think the whole school system needs to be completely renovated. It's totally wrong at the moment. Then it starts off at the very beginning. My 5-year-old who went to school, the first thing they ask in his first day at school is, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's the wrong question. It's actually a very dangerous question that traps people's minds into thinking about getting a job. The question that should be asked in school, and this is where it all starts, is what problem would you like to solve in the world? That's the question I asked my son. He wants to stop the next big extinction. So he's obsessed at 6 years old, he's 6 now, with David Attenborough and how the world is overheating. He's interested in that subject because he wants to save the planet. And he could have 6 or 7 different careers doing that. He could do lots of different things, jobs, to achieve that goal. But kids aren't asked the right question, in my opinion, because 100 years ago, the school system was designed by Henry Ford and Carnegie to get people to go on 2 holidays a year, buy a car, but go back to the factory. That meant that they had security. Because people believe working for someone else is safer than working for themselves, which it isn't. So the school system needs a complete revamp. And we all know it's broken. Everybody knows. Yeah. And we all seem to just carry on. Keep either doing private school. If we know the basic school system is broken, we put our kids into private school. We just carry on. It's perfectly normal that people come out of school with huge amounts of debt, without any purpose, without any direction, without any passion for what they do. It's fucking wrong. And something needs to change.
Well, also entrepreneurship is fundamentally the exact opposite of what you do in school. Like, it's just about failing, learning that loop.
Yep.
And failing in school is a big deal. Like the stress you feel, the shame.
They make you think you're stupid.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier. Like we were both really poor students and made to feel stupid amongst lots of smart people. But in reality, done really well in entrepreneurship because actually it you accept who you are, and those skills apply really well to entrepreneurship, which is, oh, well, it didn't work. What did I learn from it? How do I find that resilience to go again? That's kind of the thing. But then this does kind of tie into, it's a mindset as well, right? So entrepreneurship, that attitude is a mindset. And if, one of my favorite quotes is, the illiterate of the 21st century won't be those who can't read and write. They'll be those who can't learn, relearn, and unlearn, right? So it's like, you've got to go through this process of learning stuff, forgetting what you learned, and then relearning new stuff consistently, and especially true in the modern age, right? If kids are taught all this stuff, how on earth can we help them unlearn what they've learned in school so they can relearn how to be an entrepreneur and build value in society? Like, how do you think that that's possible?
Well, I think that the basic is question everything. Every person listening to this podcast should just question everything. Don't ever accept what I say, what you guys say, what anyone says as truth. History is written by the victors. There's obviously things written that are not necessarily true. There's someone's version of truth. So I think it starts with that, right? Just don't accept what you're told. Now, that doesn't mean to say you can't build your own value system. You can't believe certain things. And I think that's healthy too, to have moral code and anchors that you believe in. But I believe people should question everything.
But that also verges into mass hysteria, conspiracy theory, paranoia, flat earthers, all that kind of stuff, right? Like, there needs to be guardrails on such things like question everything.
I mean, I don't buy into conspiracy theories. I avoid them, although I question everything, and I suggest everyone questions everything. What I do to figure out if anything is true, most of the time I just follow the money. Who benefited? Did they have an influence over making the outcome beneficial to them? Money will tell you where most things are true. So it's a bit like science. You want to follow science to find out if things are factually true around scientific things, like the earth is not flat. We have proof. But when it comes to whether or not certain things, and I almost mentioned something controversial as an example, but you just follow the money, and you'll see the truth. Who benefited from that particular thing at that particular time? Did they have an agenda to push that particular thing? Did they push that particular thing? It's not a conspiracy theory, it's just money.
What was the controversial thing?
I won't say, probably get the podcast.
You're really upset, Chris,
now. I suppose following the money, you're obviously giving out money, but you're obviously a business person and have run multiple businesses. And anyone who looks into you will know that you're proven, you've done this multiple times before. Where does the money come from for what you're doing? And, do handouts work? Like, are you taking money from a certain set of people and giving it to someone else? And why are you doing that?
Yeah. So the question of there's lots of questions there.
Yeah.
What's the business model in Help Bank?
Yeah. So okay, the business model at Help Bank, I actually think, I wish everyone would understand this, because I think it's the future of business. And so traditionally, business is taught as there's two models. There's the for-profit business model, where you're a limited company, for example, and you make money. Maybe that goes to shareholders. Maybe that goes later to dividends, whatever. There's profit-based business. And then you have charities, which tend to want to act on they don't make any money model. The money all goes back into supporting the people that they're trying to support within the charity. I think there's a new way, and I call it the zero model. And the idea is that you're a for-profit business that does a lot of good with the money it makes, and you have a very clear reason to exist around making that money. So it's not just making money for the sake of making money. I actually think it's how you can unseat big companies like Google. You can unseat big players like Amazon. If I'm on Google and I use Google make money, right? Now the product is free to me, but they make money serving me up ads, right? They'd actually...
And selling your data, yeah.
Well, selling data is it's a bit more detailed than selling data, because they're not selling someone's email address to someone, for example, right? No. They're selling insights.
Your attention, I suppose.
Yeah, so the selling data thing I spent a lot of time looking at, but the point I'm trying to make is that I reckon I would use a different search engine if I knew that money was going to help the homeless, for example, right? I think sometimes a purpose-driven business that's for profit. I look at things like Microsoft that made huge amounts of money. What did Bill Gates go and do? He went away and set a foundation up, took all that profit, avoided tax, took all that profit, and then put it into a foundation to get rid of malaria. Now, whether you like him or not, it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is I think in the future, the two will come together. So you have a very profitable business that does good with that profit. And that's my model. So I'm absolutely a for-profit platform. We make money. The only thing that's different, maybe from me and other businesses, is two things. One, I will never charge people for help. I don't need to charge people for help. I will not charge people for help. I will help people in every way I can personally, for free. But I make money many ways, and one of them, for example, is brand sponsors. So I take money from big companies that can afford it, and I use that money to hire the 14 people that work on the product, that help people for free, and pay people on my platform. I pay people to help people for free, right? So that's one revenue source, is brand sponsors. In the future, of course, data, insights on my platform, I know all the problems entrepreneurs have. So that's an insight. I'm not giving away anyone's information. I'm not giving away someone's email address or their personal details, but I can sell insights. I can sell data around the problems people are facing and what companies can do to solve those problems for people. And that's another revenue source. And again, the thing I feel is that it's important to have a business model that's profitable, because I'm paying my engineers a huge amount of money. And Google paid one engineer £16 million last year. If Google was a charity, they wouldn't exist. Because people were like, you can't pay one engineer 16 million. That's coming out of the charity. That's not right. But Google's a very, very effective product, multiple products as well these days, and they're very profitable. That's what I want my platform to be too, right? I want it to be a useful product that helps people for free, but the money that comes in from that platform we use to fund people's dreams and build out tools to help people for free.
Over the last decade, Chris and I have started over a dozen businesses. It's not something we're particularly proud of, by the way, but it means we've had a lot of exposure to different business banks. You try one, you're not so happy, try another, you're not so happy. The cycle goes on. By this point, between us, we were laughing, but we tried them all. There was one we actually hadn't, and it's because they're newer, and we weren't really familiar with the fact that they had this option. So we wanted to try that based on our own knowledge and compare it. And I tell you what, it is head and shoulders above. And we are thrilled to be using and partnering with Wise Business.
Basically, Wise Business is the only account you need to get paid, pay employees and suppliers, and manage your business's money in multiple currencies.
Exactly. With Wise, you can do business across the world, pay, get paid, and manage your business's international money with ease.
And look, here's the thing. You actually save money as you grow. No hidden fees, no sneaky markups on exchange rates, and no ongoing subscription costs. It's like finding money in your pocket that you didn't know was there.
But my favorite part, and this is crucial, it's just so damn easy to use. I know, because I'm the one who set it up for this company.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you're lazy. I was never going to get you to do it. But anyway, you can make payments in as little as a few seconds, and it integrates with all your business software.
You can easily withdraw funds from Amazon, Stripe, and more in multiple currencies. And it connects to accounting softwares like Xero and QuickBooks. But damn, what about security?
Well, as you know, every time you try and log in and take money out of the account without checking with us first, the security is amazing. They've got two-factor authentication, a 24/7 customer support team, and a fraud team working around the clock to keep Chris off our money. I could go on about all of the amazing features, but seriously, when you're a small company or even just starting one, there's already so much going on that having a payment service that's quick, easy, and, by the way, most importantly, reliable is just an absolute necessity. And for that reason, we use Wise. If you want to get on board, it's simple. Just head to wise.com/business to learn more about how Wise could work for your business. That is technically a social enterprise, right?
Well, not technically. It can, again, people want to box it into. I did think about making it.
Is that a problem, by the way?
Well, no, it's just sometimes social enterprises become hard, for example, for people to invest in. And people don't like to invest in social enterprises because they don't want to take the money out. So I'm very careful with not trying to pigeonhole it into one particular thing. It's a business that makes money, that does good with that money. It helps
so
people.
someone can invest in you and get a return.
Exactly.
So sorry, is there a return in the good that's done?
Both.
So
they'll make money.
They'll get a financial return.
Yes. I think it's the holy grail of business going forward.
How can you take us through the cycle?
Okay, first of all, let's start from the user base, right? So a client can go on my platform, helpbank.com, or Simon Squibb channels, and get knowledge for free. Let's take YouTube. I've got the most popular business video on YouTube today. The most popular business video. You go business, search on YouTube today, I've got the #1 organic video on there. 4.7 million views in a month, right? That video has made hundreds of thousands of pounds. So that video, all the knowledge on there is free. Everything I've ever learned about business in 35 years of doing business is in that video. You can sit down and watch the whole thing for free. But the video made money. So I can take that money and I can build helpbank.com, which helps people for free. And I can take some of that money, I can pay people on Helpbank to help people for free. Right? So it's kind of like, from a user point of view, they've lost nothing. They get access to the knowledge for free. I haven't put it behind a paywall. Yep. And I earn money from that, which I can then spend on making the products better to help people for free. But the platform itself, of course, hopefully will be worth billions of pounds. And in itself, that means that people want to invest in it. If they invest in it, I can build more tools to help people for free. The holy grail on it is I can never charge people for help. That's the line I won't cross. So many people want, we've got a massive user base, 152,000 members on HelpBank now. We could charge them a fee, but that's breaking our promise to help people for free. So that's the line I won't cross. But brands paying us to get their products in front of communities that are interested in their products, great.
So is it like brands pay you for content deals, awareness, affiliate, all of the above?
Yeah, all of those things.
Right.
Every brand has a different need. I've been working with brands for 35 years, and I built an agency on the back of understanding brands' needs. But brands want to get new customers. They want to have customers know their tools, and often, and this is very important to me, these brands also want to help people start businesses. I mean, GoDaddy, one of my sponsors, and one of yours, I believe, they want to help people start businesses. If people start a business, they get a website. They get some hosting. Right, so a lot of these brands that I work with have the same agenda. They also want to help people start businesses, and they also want those people to have successful businesses. Because if they've got successful businesses, they'll spend more money on hosting and all these other things that people need. Right, so it's aligning yourself with the right brands that bring value, good quality product, but also want those people to succeed as much as I do.
Can you just help me understand the distinction between a zero model and social enterprise? And I'm asking on the context then of, do you know a company called Beam?
Yes, of course.
Right. So I'm an investor in Beam.
Yes.
And they're a social enterprise.
Right.
They literally help homeless people off the street in a very controlled way. They get them employed. They track their progress. They see them all the way through, because the data and statistics show that just giving homeless people money and just helping them off the street for a bed or two a night doesn't solve the problem at all. They're back on 3 days later or 4 days later. You have to stay with the person and give them confidence, give them opportunity, and see them through the process. So people crowdfund that. Pretty similar model in its own way, right? People crowdfund Terry to get a job as an electrician or whatever the things, or training as an electrician and become an electrician and get a vocation. But they also have venture funding, right? They just raised, 15 million quid or something because they're doing an incredible job. They're taking in all these amazing government contracts. However, as a social enterprise, they had a massive hit piece and people go after them for being like, how can you help them?
And that really upsets me. I've seen that.
Yeah, it's horrific. It's horrific.
The world's a little bit upside down like this.
What they do.
Yeah, the world's upside down like this.
Yeah, and so that's my question. You would be a social enterprise, but the reason you're not is because exactly what happened to them is what could happen to you. Whereas if you just say, we're a for-profit company, actually, we just help people, everyone's like, all right.
Exactly.
Yes, that's crazy.
Well,
I can't believe that's a distinction, because that I understand, and I think that's true.
There is also legal, structural differences. Like, I don't need government grants. I don't need to enter into government competitions. There's a lot of sections or departments within companies that will only help CICs or social enterprise structured businesses. I don't need any of those things. I'm a business person. I'll build a business. Yeah. And so I just, what I have noticed, even just helping people for free, I've done it. I've helped someone every single day, at least one person every single day for the last 5.5 years for free. Mm-hmm. And I still get a lot of hate online when people say, well, this is a scam. He's just trying to sell something. And the world's a bit upside down. I mean, you talk about Beam. I had a good friend of mine who used to work at a bank. He was earning £2.5 million a year at a bank, right? And he decided to quit that bank and go start a business helping the homeless in Hong Kong. And he decided, because he's got 3 kids, he has to actually make it a for-profit business. He pays himself a salary, about £100,000 a year to pay for his life. But he's helping at least 300 homeless people a month now get off the streets, get off drugs, get help. And he gets so much hate because people are like, oh, he's using the homeless to make money. I'm like, no, he's gone and left a banking job that was probably doing a lot of bad and doing good with his superpower. And the world's a little bit upside down like this. And I've been pushing through this myself. People don't seem to quite understand that a lot of rich people I know, for example, won't even help anybody because they don't want to get that, well, you could have done more. Like I interviewed John Caldwell on my podcast a little while ago. I mean, the guy's a billionaire. He actually has a charity. The thing is, everyone's like, why don't you give more? You're a billionaire. It doesn't matter. He gives 100 million a year. It doesn't matter. Want more. Give more. You could do more.
What do you think is the solution? Because I think I watch your videos. I watch everything that you do. I think it's amazing. But when you released your book, which I literally can't wait for, there was a lot of like, why the hell are you charging for this?
Yes.
There was a lot of like negativity around it. And successful people generally get slated in the UK. You know, there's a lot of negativity towards successful people and people who make a lot of money. But how do we change that perception? Like, surely becoming successful is a good thing. And if that perception was changed, I think more people would want to help a bit.
I think
that wound me up so much that I literally spent about a few hours jumping in the comments.
Yes, you did. Thank you for fighting for me.
Like, oh, just fuck off. It's ridiculous. Do you know that a book costs money to make?
Well, this is it.
Physical product. He would have sold the book. As in, like, you know, the publisher is the one selling the book. You know, like,
it takes quite a lot to wind me up, and I was so wound up for you that I just was I'm responding to these.
But it's an interesting nuance because, okay, so first of all, on my book, all the proceeds I make from that book, I'm giving away to fund people's dreams. So intent, right? It's about intent. But the intent is important. I was going to say, but when it comes to hating,
but the is making us feel bad about ourselves. You'll do yours. He'll do his just for profit.
So right.
He's feeling terrible.
But there's stages as well in life as well. There's different stages. I think that, you know, my history is I started a gardening company and I charged people to look after their gardens. I wasn't doing it for free. I know, awful, right? And then later I started a service business, an agency business, and I would charge companies and people to help start their businesses, right?
How did you sleep at night?
No, but
better money. He's telling you.
I made a lot of people rich. Right, I helped a lot of people's businesses do well, and I think that's absolutely fine. I think what I noticed, and what, you know, going back to my personal story, is like at 15 years old, no one helped me, and the only way I could get help was courses that I couldn't afford. So I'm really helping that 15-year-old me. There was no way. I had no money for a course. I didn't have anywhere to sleep. No, I might pay for someone's course. So I'm just servicing that pain that I felt when I was 15 years old. That's it. I actually have nothing against people selling courses, especially ones that have value. Yeah. I think what my issue is, and I think this is where the nuance comes into play, I have a real issue with people who, for example, let's take the property industry. These people that say they're making a shitload of money in property. They're making so much money. Property, yay, they're making so much money. And next thing you know, they're advertising a course where they're charging some kid 18 grand. And I actually had one of the people on my platform recently tell me they paid 18 grand for a property course. They borrowed from their gran, got their gran into debt. They got 18 grand course, and all the course basically you said was, buy a house, get someone else's money to do it, and then rent it out.
And paint it.
There you go. You know, and I'm like, if these people are making so much money in the property business, then surely they should just say, let me give something back and help the next generation do well as well. But I don't like it when it's framed that way. And personally, as an entrepreneur, like as a successful entrepreneur, for me, charging a course fee is like, if I want to make money, I'll start a business. I've launched a sweet brand, I'll make money there. I've launched an agency, I'll make money there. I don't need to charge some kid 50 quid. I don't, and I won't. Because if I want to make money, I'll start a business, a proper business. Now, if your business is selling courses, and I look at people I like a lot, like Ali, you know, who sells courses, I respect it because he's bringing value to those people and it has cost to deliver it. And I think that's where the book piece comes in. For me, like the publisher and the bookshops, it costs them money to keep the lights on at the bookshops. It costs them money to have staff in the bookshops. And if I want global distribution, I need those bookshops, right? So I need to make sure those bookshops get paid. And my book won't get out and help people unless those bookshops put it out. So I will reach a certain amount of people. And by the way, I've already sold enough books to be a Times bestseller book already. Pre-order already done. Will be a Times bestseller. If I released it today, it will be a Times bestseller. But I want it in the bookshops so that people can pick it up and learn what I know. And I can give them the knowledge they need to have a better life. And that book needs to pay a lot of people. The editors, the typesetters, the printer, the bookshop people that run the bookshop.
Who wrote your book for you?
Yeah, me. Actually, I did get some help to write the book because I'm dyslexic. Yeah. So I did get some help to write the book, but it's my.
I mean, that's a dirty secret in writing books in general. I know because I've spoken to Penguin multiple times about it. Like everyone has a ghostwriter. Yeah. Everyone has someone who helps them. They don't talk about it. Don't know why.
I don't know why.
That's just people's profession. They should, but everyone has one.
Well, I've done social media every day for 5 years, so I'm quite good at social media now. But writing a book, I've never done it. So I needed some help with structure, and so you know, it just makes sense. It's just hiring like a speech coach or any of these other things. It's just someone that guides you.
What do you say to the young entrepreneur who has made no money yet? They're 18, 19, 20. But they're starting out, maybe it's a gardening business, maybe it's something else, and they're doing nothing for anyone else other than themselves. What do you say to them?
Stages. Fill your own bucket first. I think there's nothing wrong with making money. I would only say you'll probably make more money if you think about building a business that helps others, not just yourself. That's all. It's just it's a business thinking thing. I reckon most companies today can be disrupted by people building exactly the same business but with a purpose instead of just to make money. I'll give you an example. I was suggesting to someone the other day that they open up a property agency. There's thousands of property agencies in the UK. Knight Frank, Savills, there's thousands of them. Right? I hate these people, by the way, as business model. It's quite soulless. I haven't personally bought a house and sold a house not so long ago. These people are just about the money, right? They're soulless a lot of the time. What if you built a property agency where when you sell the property, all the profit from selling it, after you pay people well and looked after everybody who needs to be looked after, the profit goes to homeless charities, people like Beam. All that income coming in from property would suddenly have a purpose, not just to fill the pockets of very rich people at Knight Frank, right? Personally, I'd give my property to them to list, and all it is in the end is about listing. I need a listing. The house I bought recently, I didn't give a shit who was selling it. I couldn't care less. I care about the property that I like. So if you've got the listing, you'll get the sale. And you'll take out all the other property companies tomorrow by simply having a property agency that cared about helping the homeless instead of just making loads of money for shareholders. Everyone will want to give you their property to sell. As long as you sell it, you'll get the business.
And do you think that entrepreneur, let's say that is the 21-year-old entrepreneur who starts the estate agency business that gives away a lot of its profit, do you think they have the same chance as being more successful or less successful with that model, as in personally? Because I think a lot of their dreams when you're young might be much more selfishly focused. You know, at 18, 19, 20, you might be like, I want to buy a house because that's what I want. That's my goal. That's my outcome.
Nothing wrong with those things. I want people to be able to buy themselves what they need. But I also don't want things to own people. I think a lot of the time, I know people that are middle class, stuck in their house. They don't love what they do. They thought the house was going to make them happy. They're waiting to retire to be happy. They're not living now. So I think sometimes people buy stuff to make themselves happy. And I mean, I've had this too. I bought a Porsche. That fucking thing owned me after about a month. I'm like, oh, it's got a dent in it. Oh, what am I going to do? I've got to take it back to the garage. I'm spending hours on this bloody thing. Yeah. And it brought me joy for the first week that I had it. And I want everyone to have that feeling. It was an amazing feeling. After that, these things are just a burden.
Yeah, I actually agree with you.
But I want people to, have those experiences. And I think nothing wrong with being selfish.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the reasons I'm doing what I'm doing today is because I retired. I was bored. I had to do something with my life. I went a bit crazy after selling my company. I did nothing, and it sent me a bit mad. So what I'm doing today is a selfish endeavor. I want to be useful, and I want to be seen. There's nothing wrong with being selfish. I think it's then how you apply yourself thereafter. Like, I can be selfish and help other people. That will help me be happy anyway. So selfishly, it makes me happy. Right?
There's a great quote, which is, everyone's walking around with a sign on them saying, pay me attention.
Right.
Make me feel important.
Right. We want to be useful, right?
Totally, right?
And tribal. It's a tribal thing.
I want to talk to you a little bit about fame. Because like you just said, you came over here now, people on the street shouting at you, hopefully nice things. They probably just slag you off in the comments. Slag you off in the comments, but in person, I'm sure
people are lovely to me, I have to say.
But objectively famous now.
I would argue objectively famous.
I am.
Yeah.
I annoyed someone in LinkedIn the other day because they were like, I don't know who you think you are, with all this knowledge. I'm like, I can't help it that I'm famous. And they're like, you're not famous. I said, this is the definition of fame. More people know me than I know them. That is a fact. But I do actually
Is that the definition of fame?
To me. No. It's my definition of fame.
That's Simon's definition.
Yeah, exactly.
What is the definition of fame? How do you... I think I'm famous, but I don't know that people listening, they'll be like, well, what does he think is famous?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, certainly well known, and definitely, because I think fame's an interesting thing. Like, there's an argument of like notoriety on a national basis, right? And for that, you probably need TV. What's the definition?
The state of being known or talked about by many people, especially on account of notable achievements. I mean, yeah,
absolutely. So anyway,
I think I meet the definition.
We can agree.
Certainly meet the definition.
We can agree that you're famous, and I think that's right. Most people that deal with fame have to deal with the downside of fame.
Yes.
And I've got lots of friends, we were talking about this earlier, lots of friends who are famous in different categories, and it's put me right off it.
Being famous is shit. Being famous is shit.
Right, talk to us about that. Why is being famous shit?
Do not ever want to be famous. Anybody listening, do not make that your ambition. It is an awful, awful thing.
Can I just challenge that? You must have, you're too old and experienced and smart to not have known. I met you a few years ago, right? And you were not famous then, right?
I was in Hong Kong, by the way. I just wasn't in the UK.
Who fucking cares?
Yeah, well, Hong Kong's an important place.
Right, you are famous. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chill out. Just validate him. Jesus Christ.
Okay. Foot massage. And where are my M&Ms?
So you're famous in Hong Kong. Now you're famous here too.
Yeah.
But the question is, like, you must have been smart enough, old enough, wise enough to know if I spend millions of pounds of my own money building a team, building audience, building notoriety, giving people money in the street, building awareness, all this stuff, I will get famous. So were you not consciously, literally, purposely diving straight into the belly of the beast that you knew is also, by the way, a one-way door?
Right.
Very hard to close that door. So you do not do all that stuff consciously.
Dan and I have started over a dozen companies between us, so we know how this goes. You're starting up, you're scaling, ideas are flowing, you're making plans, and you're really getting caught up in the bigger picture. This is when the fine details can find themselves overlooked. I'm talking about security and compliance.
Now, before you roll your eyes and reach for that skip button, hear us out. This isn't your grandpa's boring lecturer on following rules. This is about building trust, and in the digital world, trust is the new currency. Here's the thing. You don't have to go through this nightmare if you use Vanta.
Vanta is like having a compliance guru, a risk management wizard, and a trust-building ninja all rolled into one sleek AI-powered package. They automate the hell out of compliance for SOC 2 and ISO 27001. Say it with me.
ISO 27001.
All jokes aside, I've experienced this myself with my company Lottie. We weren't allowed to pitch one of the biggest companies in the country because we didn't have our ISO 27001 certification in place. And so this is a serious thing.
If only you'd have had Vanta, mate. Vanta doesn't just tick boxes, it builds trust. And in business, trust is everything. That's why Chris couldn't get that deal through. It's the difference between a prospect saying, maybe later, and shut up and take my money. With Vanta, you're not just complying, you're showing the world you've got your stuff together. Over 8,000 companies already use Vanta. Whether you're a scrappy startup or you're scaling, Vanta's got your back.
Now I know what you're thinking. This sounds great, but I bet it costs an arm and a leg. Well, if you head over to vanta.com/secret leaders right now, you'll get $1,000 off. So give Vanta a shot and join the ranks of businesses that are building trust faster than you can say SOC 2 compliance. Trust me, your future self and your stress levels will thank you. As in
Long pauses on podcasts, people switch off today. Is it go quiet?
You didn't get famous accidentally.
No, but okay. No. Let me put it this way, and I'm gonna go back in my mind to like when I first started this, and this is the absolute truth, right? This is genuinely what happened. I was going mental doing nothing.
Yep.
Right, and I thought that, and I wrote down the things I like to do and the things I don't like to do. And I wrote down like what problems I'd like to solve in the world, and the pain of what happened to me when I was 15 years old and having no help and being desperate, being alone, building something, but also the joy I had at that time of realizing if you have something in your head, you can make it real. Whatever it is, what we're sitting on now was all in someone's head once, you know, like that realization, that part is true. Anybody listening to this, they've got an idea in their head that can make it real. Alongside the pain I had, all I wanted to do was, I've got knowledge and I want to give it to people. That's what happened. All I wanted to do was give knowledge. And so I just started doing that. I did a podcast. I went on social media. Here's what I know. And I didn't think about the fame bit. What I looked at the time was, only 20 people have viewed this. That's a shame. I want more people to know this knowledge. Right? And at one point, I kidded myself that it's okay that only 20 people watch it. And then after talking to Dan and other people that I admire, they're like, you know what, Simon, if you're going to do this, do it properly. Go all in. And that's when I started investing heavily in building up the platform. But the thing I love the most about my platform is actually it promotes other people. I think that's what's a little bit different about my social media, maybe to most platforms, is that I'm not on there quoting about how brilliant I am. I'm not putting inspirational quotes that were once just Buddha quotes up on my social media. What I'm doing is I'm saying, here's someone with a dream. Let's help them. This is their dream. Here's some tips on how they can make it happen. You 6 million people, or the last video got 53 million views on TikTok, right? You 53 million people, maybe you could all help them, be a customer, introduce them to a customer, share their story on your social media. You know, and that's the thing I love the most. It's not about promoting me, but I have by accident become famous, and it is not a good thing. Like that, I literally recently had someone stalk me. I had someone knocking on the door of my family home. I had people sending me private.
Shouldn't have put a doorbell on it though. That
Well,
was a
no
trap.
doorbell there.
Silly.
But honestly, like my wife as well, she's very, very conservative
Well,
and very,
we've
very
got
shy.
We've got similar partnerships that way.
Yeah,
Like,
and she
as
doesn't.
You know, Melissa
she
hates it.
And I love my wife. I don't want to
Yeah.
get a divorce, but
Yeah.
she finds this stuff very, very challenging. And
Yeah.
most people that get very famous get a divorce. Gary Vee just got a divorce, right? Like most people who get this famous get a divorce. I don't want that, right? So I think I've had to do a lot of things to hide where I live and be a little bit more careful on social media.
Everyone knows you
like
live in Newcastle.
Everyone knows I live in Newcastle, yeah.
Thanks for coming down.
I joke that I live next door to Ricky Gervais to kind of really throw people off. But
He lives in Newcastle.
He lives in Newcastle, yeah. But the point I'm trying to make is that, you know, fame is... Okay, there is an upside to fame, and I don't want to belittle it. You can make an impact. Like, since I've got very popular on YouTube, like, everybody wants to meet me. Like, there isn't a single person I can't DM in my Instagram now that won't meet me. Everybody. And that access is pretty interesting, especially if I want to fix the education system, right? So now I have access, because I have a platform, I have access to the people that can help me do it. And so that is something quite special. But I think there's two types of fame, and maybe people listening should think about this. The first type of fame, and the fame I absolutely love, the fame that I personally think everyone should go for, is what I call business to business fame. This is fame within your ecosystem of business.
Exactly what we were talking
Yeah,
about.
to
That's
me-
the fame that I got. Like, if I go into a co-working space,
Everyone knows
heard
you.
the podcast, they all know me,
Perfect.
etc. And I walk out on the street, no one knows me.
That
it's the
fame
dream.
in
It's
Hong
great.
Kong, I could ring anybody up in Hong Kong before this social media stuff took off. I could ring up anybody in Hong Kong after 20 years of doing the right thing there, by delivering, by doing what I said I was going to do. There's no one I couldn't ring up there and say, hey, can you help me with this or get involved in that? I love that. I think business to business fame is totally underrated and never explained to people. Your reputation matters. Don't screw people over. It's not tread on people to get ahead like the bullshit business you hear. Treat people with respect. Do what you say you're going to do. That business to business reputation is so valuable.
B2B fame is basically just reputation on steroids.
Basically, yeah. But the next type of fame, this kind of public fame, definitely has its drawbacks, as I've just described, but it has incredible upsides too. And so I say to anybody that wants to be famous, and you guys are famous in your own way too, it's like, you have to do it for a purpose, not to just be famous. Like, have a reason to be famous, and then it's worth it. Like, if I can genuinely fix the education system, if I can genuinely give people more choices than university, and some people can start a business and get out of financial difficulty, then it's worth it. It's worth just hiding my address and being a bit more cautious. And I was out with my son the other day in Newcastle, people coming up to us taking pictures. At one point I was like, I just want to be with my son by the river. But I've told him my job is to help people, so when people come up to me and say hello, we have to help them. That's the promise I've made. That's the sacrifice I've made.
Just wear a cap.
Leave me alone.
No, just a cap makes all the difference.
First of all, I have tried that and it doesn't work. Second, they give me a headache.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Well, yeah, I mean, celebrities caps.
I could wear a beard as well, I guess. I could like wear glasses.
Yeah.
I just, you know, the other side of it, again, I'm being a bit negative about fame. There's something really lovely about it, though. Like when people come up to you, and I'm on the right side of history, I think, because I'm just trying to help people believe in themselves. And you know, whereas Piers Morgan, for example, I'm not sure I'd want to be his sort of famous because it's quite controversial sometimes. He's softened it lately, but like people come out like, you like that guy, you believe in that war should exist. I don't want to be in a division type fame. I think a lot of people do that. They use division fame, right? They basically have a stance on a particular thing that is division based. Like, I love a football team, and so everyone else, they hate you, right? Because you love that football team. I don't want to be a division based kind of influencer. I like the idea that my thing is about like anyone can do anything, and if you put your mind to it, make your want a need, apply yourself, you can do anything. Humans are fucking incredible. I like that sort of fame, and I think that people, when they come up to me, generally are like, thanks for inspiring me, thanks for helping me, I started something, I did this, I watched a video, I realised I was making excuses and I've started something. Like, I actually really enjoy that interaction with people, and so far, other than the odd crazy moment, it's been pretty good.
And those are the extremes, right? Because very occasionally I actually do message you, as you know, being like just motivational messages and texts and stuff, because I observe you getting lots of negative comments and stuff, and I do wonder, sympathetically for you as my friend, if you're all right.
Yeah,
like
I have struggled at points.
It must hurt.
It is a mental health roller coaster, I think, putting yourself out there, which is why a lot of people don't do it. It's why a lot of famous artists just stop singing, and they just, because at some point there is a pressure, isn't there? There's like, and I find that I have a system for helping people. But I get DMs every day. I probably get 200 DMs every day with someone who's in desperate trouble. Like
it's the Stan thing, right? Like Eminem Stan.
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
that. You haven't written back to me. You haven't responded to me. You told me you want to help everyone.
Yeah.
I see it in your
Yeah,
comments.
yeah.
And I'm just like, Christ, I'd hate to be in your situation. Like, I'd hate that.
But it's
must be
better.
difficult.
I'd rather be in the arena than not there at all. And of course, I can't help everybody. But I'm
Someone's
trying
got
to
to fight the fight, right?
Well, I think the more good people in the arena, the better. Just another part of my mission is to bring other people into what I'm doing. And like, okay, I'm not the only one that can help people, right? Because I'm like, well, like let's say Richard Branson, for example, who was one of my heroes growing up. But then I see that he's put his knowledge on masterclass behind a paywall. It doesn't matter how much it is. Part of me thinks, well, you're a billionaire that's made lots of money out of lots of people in England. You could just make all that knowledge freely available to help other people be the next Richard
I
Branson.
can't believe someone who doesn't want to pay taxes here to put stuff behind
I
a
know.
paywall.
Well, there you go. Weird, isn't it? And sometimes, you know, I find myself, I find it a struggle because I like Richard Branson to a certain extent. Certainly when I was younger, he was one of my business heroes.
Yeah.
But it kind of disappoints me. Like, he should be fixing the education system. He should be.
Yeah.
He has the power to do it and the influence. And we know the education system isn't teaching people financial literacy. Why the fuck not? Right? And he could fix it.
His argument might be back that he does a lot for charity.
Sure.
And how much more do you want from him?
But a lot of people say that. People say, I do all my kindness behind closed doors. Why the fuck do you do that? Inspire people. Show us.
They don't want the fame.
This bullshit. He's already famous. Of course he
I
wants
don't
the
know.
fame.
I don't know if Richard Branson would hide
I
behind
suppose
that statement.
to the point about most people.
You're
say
not
it
famous
behind.
because you do one charity giveaway. You know, people should be showing they're doing good. This
Yeah.
is my
But
personal
I do
opinion.
think charity is an explosive issue. So if someone who's wealthy gives money to charity, they aren't often met with, you know, congratulations for giving 5 million. They're
You
met
just said
with
it.
why the fuck didn't you give 50 million?
You just said it
Yeah,
yourself.
I agree.
And
Yeah.
so, in Branson's defence, he's giving a lot to charity that otherwise wouldn't have been
I
given
would
to charity.
rather Richard Branson gave his knowledge away. And he can still give money to charity, but honestly, him giving 5 million to cancer research, which I don't know if he's done that, but that would be amazing. And I wouldn't be one of those voices saying give more. I'd say well done, Richard Branson. But the one thing he's got that most people in England don't have is a lot of knowledge around business. Give it to the people. For fuck's sake. Do you really need that money from Masterclass? Really? Come on. Put it out there on YouTube like I've done. Make it free.
Yeah.
What harm will it do? Why not do that? It took me 1 day to film that video. 1 day. Right? What's the big deal?
The flip side of that is that you are a professional communicator now, right? You've been doing it for 5 years.
So is
like
Richard
you say,
Branson, it's all right?
Yeah, to an extent, for sure.
He can do a masterclass. He can do a quick
He
video.
goes on
I think
podcasts
that-
and he says like, you know,
yeah.
but his whole entire shtick is just delegate. Like he like very quickly realizes a poor CEO. He got out of the way and stuff. It comes back to that whole thing of like, if more information was the answer, everyone would be a billionaire and six packs on
You've got to
Necker
start
Island.
somewhere.
I think comparing to Richard Branson is like a poor equation. There are thousands of entrepreneurs out there who are not good communicators.
Yeah.
And so they can't do what you do.
Sure. Well, if they're not good at communicating, that's fine.
Yeah. Give money.
But
to
if they're
charity.
good at communicating and they're making and they're making shitloads of money as a business person, then don't fall into the selling the course for the sake of it.
What would you
And
say-
most people I know that are selling courses are actually they start off selling courses like without speaking about people, you know, their private businesses, but like it's not an easy business either. Selling courses, it's a bit of a reputational risk for a lot of people. I've seen it happen. Good people do sell courses and get a bad reputation because people go into those. If you pay money, people have an expectation, right? That's the other thing. Like, my reputation's intact because I gave my knowledge for free. People can watch my YouTube video. It's free. Or they don't have to watch it. It's fine.
What would
The
you
end.
say to the people who say that to take something fully seriously, you have to
It's bullshit.
invest in it?
It's just another. See, the argument is that the way you're explaining this argument is, and I've heard it many times, is if people pay to pay attention, right? That's the argument.
Well, I think it's also the awareness you're talking about, and I'm sorry to be pedantic, because about 5 million people watch the video. I don't think anyone would dispute that stuff at that kind of value is free. But it's the difference between that and 5,000 people who paid for it more like turn it into action because they're like, Jesus Christ, I spent $2,000 on this course.
What's your reference point?
No, I don't know. I'm saying that would be the more logical point. I don't think anyone's arguing about the awareness.
Yeah.
Right? Watching something and
So
turning
I've run
it
this
into action.
experiment. So I've run it. I've
Yeah, go
run
on.
the experiment
So
both
you
ways.
charge
yeah.
for courses?
So no, yeah, but no, I've charged for stuff in the past. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
When my other businesses in both Fluid
Clip
and
that up, right? Can't believe he's
No,
done that.
I never said that I never charged people for stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, I've charged people for stuff, but I'm saying that I think that we need to be a bit careful with what I guess self-enforced belief systems that aren't true.
Yeah.
So if someone pays to go to the gym, doesn't mean they go, right? What makes most people go to the gym is one of two things: health scare. They have to go, they're going to die.
Yeah.
Back to my taking your want and making it a need. That's what makes people go to the gym. Or they're single suddenly, need to look good, right? Now they need to do it, otherwise they will be single for the rest of their life.
Vanity.
Right, vanity.
Yeah.
Or finally, there's an element of like peer pressure, community. So if I'm meeting you every day at 7 o'clock to go to the gym, you will turn up because we've agreed to go. Right, it's like that's why people have personal
where were you
trainers.
this morning?
I was there waiting for you. But the personal trainer thing works for a lot of people because I've made an appointment, I paid for it. Yes, okay. But most people that I know have personal trainers. The amount of money isn't that much pain for them. Yeah. So it's about pain, not paying. It's about pain, not paying. Now, what's interesting is if people pay, that's one level of pain you can create. But it's not the most important pain. I know many people that pay for things and don't do them. Right? It's just one way to try and cause pain. But it's not the motivation for people to follow through. It's a good way, you could argue, of filtering through those that are serious about trying to do it. But most people don't give a shit. Gym owners don't give a shit if no one turns up at the gym. In fact, their whole business model is, if it was true that people paid, they went, they'd be fucked because the gyms would be full up with people that turned up. They'd be like, oh my fucking God. Gyms don't want you to go to the gym.
Yeah.
That's the irony. Their business model is anti that. They literally don't want you to go. So they're not motivated to help you get fit. Right? The only gym that would ever be motivated to make you get fit would be one, and this is the model I do. They pay you up. You can only sign up if someone else joins up with you at the same time, and you're committed to going together. Otherwise, you can't join up at my gym. That's the gym I'd run. That people will turn up, and you could only sell probably exactly the amount of membership that could have people in that gym. In other words, if you can only have 100 people in there, you can only sell 100 memberships, which financially would be hard for people. But then the gym would work.
And then give away the profit.
Well, I like that model. I think there's nothing wrong with like thinking about what to do with the profit that isn't just give rich people even more money. I think that's a disruptor. Purpose, right, is a disruptor to all business models. If you have purpose, genuine purpose, because I've been involved in companies like that fake it. They're like, well, we care about people.
Yeah.
Do you? Do you really? Like, what do you do to actually help people? Well, we give them a job. No, you need those people to do that work. Otherwise, your company doesn't have a business, does it? Oh, yeah, but we give them Fridays off. Yeah, well, you do that so they stay there and don't quit, don't you? Like, where's the motivation to do something without an expectation of something back?
One thing that, as you were talking, made me think. So what you're asking other people in society to do, what you're asking other entrepreneurs to do, and this would be a fair criticism, right? Because this is exactly what happens all the time with everyone. You want other entrepreneurs to take this inspiration and do the model you're doing now after you already did the last model, which is you made yourself a success. You took all the profits and with your business partners or whatever the thing and your investors, of course, the normal model, right? And you became a millionaire, you became wealthy, and then you went on the very classic entrepreneur journey, sat here opposite, you know, how everyone does it. She's like, Christ, oh, I know everyone told me, but it turns out there was more to just making money. What the hell am I going to do in my life? Bugger, I've got no purpose, I'm lost. I hear it hundreds of times. You've gone through exactly the typical entrepreneur career path, the one that goes well. Which is awesome.
I wish someone had told me this at 18, though. That's actually what I'm trying to get across. Because
I totally get it, but like you said earlier, most people need to live that pain, you know, luxurious pain, but they need to learn that lesson for themselves.
No, they don't.
But
well, hopefully not.
He also
hopefully
did say, which I think is the good caveat, is you should fill your cup first. Which I feel like, you know, but you did make yourself wealthy and made loads of money.
Yeah, but everybody who's working with me will also become wealthy.
Yeah, now.
Yeah.
Now, people working with me now will become
wealthy
as well.
Now, and so what I'm saying
but
is,
I'm not saying don't become wealthy. You see, I'm saying, in fact, I'm saying if I went back to that 15-year-old me and started that gardening company, I would build purpose into that gardening company. I kind of gave up on the gardening company because it didn't have a purpose. That's what happens to a lot of people that start a business. I mean, your business is helping people too, right? If you actually look at businesses that succeed, actually the entrepreneurs that stick at it, often because it did some good in society. Right? Wherever you want to argue about, even businesses like Google or Amazon, they've done something to make society better in their own way.
I mean, Google made all information free.
Yeah. Google, I mean, Rolex is a charity, right? People don't realise Rolex, the business, is a charity. So there's nothing wrong with selling gaudy watches that I think are pointless and making lots of money out of it because that money goes into a charity system. Like people don't realise, actually some of the most successful businesses actually have this mindset. Most founders, when they leave companies, that they take away their philosophy, the business can collapse.
Yeah.
I mean, people like the Yahoo founder, he left. He actually had a whole plan to make Yahoo support society, Right, and when he left, that all became just about venture capitalists making money and how can we squeeze money out of this data? And they forgot that it was a purposeful business to begin with. And then these businesses become, who knows Yahoo? Most of your listeners won't even know what Yahoo is anymore. Because they lost their purpose, they lost their way, they lost.
What advice we can give youngsters? So if you are 18, 19, 20 right now and you're thinking about starting a business, what are the step-by-step in your mind to doing that? Where should they be focusing their time?
Well, I guess it depends on the individuals. First of all, try to know yourself a bit. What do you like doing? What you don't like doing? What you don't like doing, don't do it. And what you do like doing, get really fucking good at it. Like, just double down on it. Like, I loved marketing when I was younger. It was called sales back then. It wasn't as fancy as marketing today. But I liked meeting people and then selling something. I loved that whole transactional nature initially.
And that as a skill was like an amazing.
But it's a learnable skill.
Yeah.
It's a learnable. So my number one salesperson in my last company was my accountant. She was my number one salesperson. So she was an introvert, and she was shy, and she was my number one salesperson. So she would go for lunch with her other CFO friends, and she'd be talking about what we were doing. Oh, I'm working with Fluid, and we're turning this company around. It's amazing, and we did this, and she was just proud talking to other shy, quiet CFOs. And then those quiet, shy CFOs would go back to their CEOs and say, I was just having lunch and found out about Fluid. Do you know about? And I'd get a phone call, and I'd be brought in there to help those companies. So I think everyone can learn sales. It's just knowing your personality and applying yourself. And I think once you know sales, you can do anything. You're free, because it's just a question of selling what you've got. Right? So I think everyone should learn sales, everybody. That would be my personal suggestion to people. I think also just maybe, like we said earlier, get rid of any limiting belief systems that you've got, right? Just for 1 second, just think how amazing your brain is. It's like this supercomputer, and maybe it's not activated fully. Maybe it needs a bit of reprogramming, but like work on your mind. You know, like that's why I invested in Heights, right? I love products that help people work on their minds, you know, like fix your brain, wire it so you believe in yourself, first step. Second step is like, just do something. It doesn't have to be, when you're that young, it doesn't have to be purposeful. My first business was a shitty gardening company. It doesn't have to be revolutionary. It doesn't have to be totally unique. You don't have to be Elon Musk. You know, just like clean windows, clean cars. You know, I've got these 2 kids at the moment I'm helping, and they're just cleaning parts of London that no one else wants to clean. Yeah. So they're just cleaning up this shit that no one else wants to clean. And they're recording it, and they're making loads of money on social media, and now they're getting booked for cleaning jobs.
There you go.
You know, like I just think that people are too precious and overthink it. Spend a year traveling if you can. Like, just live cheap. Keep your costs down. That's what I say to young people. Don't get into debt if you can help it.
How do you square off living your purpose and cleaning just for the sake of making money?
Well, purpose comes in different forms for different people. Those 2 twins, the kids I'm talking about, they're living in one small room with their 3 brothers and their mum. And they need to provide for their family, and they want to build something that helps their family. So purpose can start there, can't it? You know, why can't it just be you want a better life for you and your family, and you're willing to do anything to make that happen? I think that's not a bad start. I think as they succeed, I'm 100% sure later they'll help other families in similar situations. Maybe they'll set up a charity. Maybe they'll just work to build a business that funds people to get out of poverty. They were homeless themselves as well at one point as a family, and the twins haven't seen their dad in 17 years because of the immigration problems in this country. They can't get their father into the country because they think their father's going to come here and suck off society or something. Don't cut that up, Ron. You know what I mean.
I don't know.
The point I'm making is
they're worried that their dad's going to suck off society. is an excellent clip.
That's going viral. Boom. The point is, you want a viral clip, and I've given it to you. So go suck yourselves off.
Thank you for the title. Finally.
So really good advice, I think, is when you're young, go work for an inspiring, brilliant entrepreneur. Be close.
You sound like Dan Priestley. Yeah, that's exactly what he says.
Yeah, he does believe that.
That is what he says. And I think that's great advice.
Yes and no. I would say half of that advice is right. Yes, go work with someone. I would say to people, try to figure out what purpose looks like, right? Because when you see purpose in people, like when people work with me, they're like, oh, wow, I know what it looks like. I know what purpose looks like now. Because sometimes you work in companies, you work for people that don't have purpose. You won't know what this is. Right, so go work with someone who's got purpose. Not just go work for someone, go work with someone who's got purpose, because it's infectious and you'll learn. You either fall in love with that person's purpose and be a part of that company, or you'll learn what it looks like. The second thing I'd say that's different to Dan, and Dan's a good friend of mine, so I can say this hopefully without insulting him, is that ask for equity where you work. You've got nothing to lose. Go there, be cheeky. ask for equity. They'll say no. They might even laugh at you. But I'm a boss of a company, and when people ask me for equity, I smile. I'm like, they get it. Equity is the only way you can scale. Don't sell time. Now, maybe at first you have to sell time, but don't make that your end goal. Don't get stuck selling time. Ask for equity at the beginning of the interview. If you ask for me for equity in an interview, I smile. I'm more likely to give you the job. People might not like it who's giving this tip to people, to young people? Bosses aren't giving it to the young people because they don't want them asking them for equity. And people that are bosses are busy complaining how hard it is to be an entrepreneur. But won't for 1 second go work for someone else.
I mean, on the equity piece, obviously what Daniel Priestley would say if he was here is,
why don't we ring him up and ask him?
Yeah, I can't go into fucking Tesco and say, can I have that sandwich? It's a bit of my equity and I'll pay for that.
So what? But it's a long-term play. So I mean, sure, you can just take a salary and you can buy your food at Tesco's. But most people want to go to Waitrose these days anyway. And if you want to go to Waitrose, you need to own equity. It's sponsored by Waitrose. But, it doesn't matter. Yes, definitely pay people. Yeah. But when you're young, I think... The thing that made me rich, I think, is that when I was young and I could afford to live low cost, I lived low cost and owned equity. And eventually, I sold the equity for huge amounts of money. Yeah. So you get rich from equity. You don't get rich from a salary. It's just impossible. Everyone knows it. But in school, they don't teach you this. You don't sell time. It's not scalable. Right? So sure, at the beginning, get a salary to cover your costs of living. But don't forget to ask for equity. That's the only difference I would say with what Dan says and what I'm saying. It's like, make sure you at least try to get something that's scalable.
How come you don't go around the street giving people shares then? Why don't you just do that instead of giving them $5,000?
Because I'm helping them start their business. They don't necessarily have to work in my business. But anyone working in my business has equity. Out of the 14 people, there's only one that doesn't have equity, and he's over there. But everyone else has equity.
Hater.
Yeah. Splitter. People's front of Judea.
Okay, but coming back to then actually just giving money to people to start businesses, what have you found as the difference between the ones who actually take that opportunity and turn it into a success and the ones who just take the money, they want to do it, but something gets in their way and they don't?
I've written a whole book about this, which is you can pre-order right now. Bit of a plug.
I've already done that, as you know.
Okay, good. Yeah. But you don't need to buy the book if I tell you it now. Just the basic principle of the book is about this. It's like if you want to get rich, if you want to be successful, the irony is you need to help someone else do it first. It's kind of that's the framework people need to live by if they want to be successful. I don't know if that answers the question exactly.
Not at all, actually. That was an awful answer.
I did a politician answer. I did a politician answer. I basically answered the question I wanted to answer. Plug my book.
No, it's fantastic. Thank you for answering the question with "We'll buy your book." If you could just answer the actual questions. You know I have. I've sent you a screenshot. I was straight up there.
Have you bought the book?
Not yet. No.
What a prick.
He's sponsoring
my
platform. He's not a prick.
You know I'm straight up on there. Screenshot.
Yeah.
Little comments. Anyway, answer the bloody question.
Go on.
What's the difference between someone who you give $5,000 to?
Yeah.
And actually does the thing successfully, right? And I'm not talking about like successfully like exit. I'm talking about really gives it a good go. And I'm sure there've been plenty of people who take the $5,000 and they want to. There are no bad intentions. I'm not trying to suggest that. They just don't do it.
Right.
What's the difference?
Yeah. So very loaded question, by the way, because an element of like, if I like your first business failed, right? So people gave you money, you tried it and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I'm not saying successful outcome. No, I'm saying, but I still did it, right? I still went into the arena. I still did it.
But you failed.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So most of the people that I'm giving money to in the street failed.
Of course.
But and this is the interesting thing. There's two things that happen. One is that person wakes up, right? They're aware now that it's possible. Even if they go and try and start their business, their photography business, their whatever business that they say their dream is, and it doesn't work, at least they're not living with regret. They tried to do it. Most people try to do it. The second part of it is the people watching the content, by the way, is the people that I'm helping the most. The 50 odd million people that watched the last video, tens of thousands of them have gone, I'm making excuses too. I know this because they say it in the DMs. I've started a business because I've been making excuses and now I've started. So it's actually often the person who watches the video, not the person in the video, that we've had the most success with. One interesting thing, I do two forms of content, right? One is I go into the street and ask people what their dream is and they tell me. And now we have a second way of making content, I guess, where people can go pitch their dream to our doorbell. Really interesting, nearly everybody that pitches to the doorbell starts. And everybody I bump into in the street. So the street
I
stuff...
can see that, because
that makes perfect sense.
Yes, there's correlation.
But they've already begun.
There's a bit of effort. You've gone up to someone in the street and been like, here's money. They didn't have to go anywhere, do anything.
But there's an important thing I want people to know.
But still, you have to at least go to Twickenham yourself, even that, you were talking to me earlier, like, I hate traveling, I can't even bother to, etc. People
It's an
get
effort.
patterns. It's effort.
Yes.
And no one gets anywhere in business or in life, especially business, without a shitload of effort.
Right.
So making it a bit hard is a good thing.
The street content within our model, we describe it as fun education.
Yep.
And the street content stuff, I love meeting people.
Tofu.
And the truth is, it takes time for people to unplug from their existing trap.
Yep.
Some people are in desperate trouble. I meet them in the street. They're not paying their bills. Their brain will not allow them, even though they've had that lucky moment, you could argue, and I've promoted their dream and they've got millions of people. We promoted someone the other day, they got 36,000 followers in 24 hours on their Instagram. Right. It took me a year and a half to get 10,000 followers. Like, I love it when I can transfer my following to other people's following. But even then, they're scared to do it. They're scared to do it because they're trapped. It's like my favourite movie is Shawshank Redemption. And the guy's been in prison 50 years. And when he gets out, he just wants to go back to prison.
You mean Red? Oh no, the other guy who carves his name.
Yeah. But that whole point is like, sometimes people get institutionalised. So I've noticed it depends on the age of people. If they're young, more likely they're going to do it. As they get older, they start making more and more excuses. And they get trapped in middle class life. If you've got a mortgage and kids, it's much harder than you've got no mortgage, you've got no kids. It's just fact. And now instinct to look after our family is so strong, it overrides our instinct to have a happy life. So a lot of people get trapped by their middle class life. And so there's nuance to it. Even the street content, that I feel like I've been on like a human data insight, human behavior insight thing for the last 5 years. Because I see people literally come alive when they talk about their dream, but they don't do it. So why don't they do it? And often it's circumstances. It's their upbringing. It's their personal situation financially. I know some people, for example, who are in so much debt, they can't do their dream. They just literally can't operate. They've got so much debt. Their brain won't let them.
Yeah.
They're just scared all the time. And so the part of the brain that allows you to be creative, start something you love, just isn't even on. It's died. It's
you're in
withered
fear
away.
mode.
Yeah.
Okay, if we were starting today and we hadn't got a platform and we didn't know what to do, what would you give us? What is your advice? Like, how would we go and be successful in the world according to Simon Squibb? You're a free teacher because we're not paying for this.
I mean, number one, go watch the Simon Squibb video on YouTube. It will give you all the foundational knowledge you need.
Done that.
And then join communities like helpbank.com and others that can give you support and knowledge and guidance and become your first customer. All of this stuff is free. And I honestly think that if you're not building a personal brand today, you're making a big mistake. Because even if you're an introvert, you should build a personal brand. Maybe pick a platform that suits your personality, but build a personal brand.
Unpack that a bit. What does that mean?
What does personal brand mean?
As in, like, building a personal brand as an introvert.
Well, I mean, it could be, for example, that you like to write. So get on LinkedIn and write every day. Share your process, your knowledge, your frustrations, your hopes, your dreams. Just be yourself, but be present. Be raising your profile. I have a friend of mine who was fired as a CEO, a quite high profile guy. Can't get a job now because he's got no social media presence, and no company wants to hire a CEO that can't bring that to the table. Really.
It's amazing, that shift, isn't it?
So I think, and I get job offers every day to run quite big businesses because I've got a social media presence, and I think it's an asset.
I'm waiting to hear that from you.
Yes, you are. I will get back to you.
But I would say the same
very
thing,
soon.
The
Would
same
you run
thing-
heights? Would you want me to run heights?
Well, just assistant to the junior marketing manager would be nice as a role, if you're looking.
I will give it some
Just
consideration.
Think about it.
Yeah,
Just think about it. I think you'd be
can I have
great
more
for the
equity?
role.
I think the same thing can be said to, like, young people in jobs. If they build their personal brand, they kind of get a perfect blend of, you get carrot and stick in your organization.
Totally, yeah.
And in any hiring decision moving forward.
Yeah.
And then you give yourself optionality to become an entrepreneur or do a side hustle.
I think anybody who's in a company right now should think about a side hustle being their personal brand build within that company. You know, if you're an intern, then document the story and what you're learning for future interns to look at. And for the boss will definitely read it. And that'll help you stand out.
Thing is, it's difficult. All of this stuff is true, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. On a personal level, you know, I only started doing this stuff about a year ago, maybe 18 months ago, because I felt like I needed at least a decade of value, experience, etc., to have the credibility to be writing.
You've been doing a podcast for 8 years.
Yeah, podcast, but
that's
no
a
social,
personal brand
but no
build.
social media. Of course,
That's
but that's
because
because
that's B2B business brand build. So maybe people, again, go back to what we were saying earlier. When you're building a personal brand, it doesn't have to be a business profile.
Yeah.
So you've been building a business profile for a long time.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think people should start that straight away. You don't want to be famous for the sake of being famous. I'm not saying go and become a big influencer. I think it's a pain unless you've got a purpose. But do build your personal brand. But certainly if you're I don't know, for example, even going to medical school, right? Like you should document the process because you build yourself up and give yourself another revenue stream for potentially.
I think optionality is the thing that whenever anyone asks me, I'm like, why wouldn't you? Especially if it's low touch for just writing, like why wouldn't you? And then your optionality, the moment that you want to do anything else, is so much more vast. You've got endless opportunity once you've got. And I always say this to people on my channels always ask like, how many followers do you need or how big? And it doesn't really matter to an extent. If you have a decent sized audience who, are interested in what you have to say, that's the beginning of the build. That's the beginning of when you started. You had a small audience.
Zero. I had zero.
And it's just,
I started with zero on all channels.
Yeah, well, as everyone does. Yeah, but I suppose it's just the beginning is the part where it's actually quite hard to get going. So if you're doing it in a light touch way anyway,
yeah, don't buy followers. I mean, there's probably some principal things. Like I know a very successful entrepreneur who's bought a lot of followers, and
Did you?
No, not you guys, and their engagement is zero.
Yeah,
so they do a post. They got 1 million followers,
Yeah,
but they
so
got no
embarrassing when you see
engagement.
that.
And
It's very
so we
embarrassing
know
'cause it's very
because
transparent,
you can
isn't
see
it?
it as someone in the industry. But people, you've got 1 million followers, and then you're like, well, you just did a post and got 4 likes.
Yeah.
Like it's about building authentic engagement. It's better to have 100 followers with 50 people engaging in your content than 1 million with 5. Like it's just people need to learn the basics of how it works. But if you're a personal brand, I think it's also like going to the gym. It trains your muscle, your brain.
Totally.
So I've been doing content for 5 years. When I first started doing it, I was so awkward. I mean, I consider myself an extrovert. I'm a pretty good salesperson. I like marketing, but it was awkward, and I've got good at it. And I think that's the thing. It also gives you another skill set if you do it every day. You post on LinkedIn every day. It gives you another skill set. It also teaches you discipline, and it shows you compound over time.
Yeah.
My Instagram, for example, I've just got 450,000 new followers in the last 4 weeks. But it's taken me 5 years to get to where I was 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right, compound.
When you're talking of compounding, on your deathbed, got your family around you, what are your regrets? What do you think that you might have missed out on?
Well, I'm trying to make sure I don't have any regrets because I know that is one of the things a lot of people when they're later in life, they regretted what they didn't do, not what they did do, right? What you did do is a story. What you didn't do is something you missed out and you'll never know. So I don't want to live with regrets. I sometimes say, because people ask me what my regrets are, and I try to dig deep and be very authentic about it, I regret the fact I don't have a relationship with my mother. I find that nothing I can do about it. She's still alive today. We just don't get on, and we have fundamental different moral code. I'm not saying she's right and I'm wrong. I'm just saying we are very different people, and I'm kind of sad about that because my son doesn't see his gran. I think because I've travelled all over the world, that's been the most amazing experience. I've seen what China looks like. I've seen for real, not what the media tells us. I've seen the world, and I love it. But I've also found it hard to maintain friendships. So I have in my life maybe 3 deep friendships, and I've let a lot of friendships go because I've experienced the world. So sometimes I not regret that, but I reflect on that. And
Can you go back
to the old friendships?
to the old friendships, to your mum?
To my mum, no, for lots of reasons. Primarily because my son has a lot of food allergies, and she doesn't believe they're real, and she keeps trying to feed him stuff that will kill him. That side.
I have food allergies, so I feel you.
Right, yeah. So my mum's like, none of you kids had a problem. Here's some nuts. I'm like, I've got an EpiPen in my hand. Please don't do it. But I mean, at that side, I think
To the friends, then.
I think friendship-wise, I've made friends again with some of the people that I used to work with when I was in England before I left, and it's actually been nice.
Yeah.
But we're very different. Like when I hang out with them, I can't really talk about Hong Kong because I'll be like, Hong Kong's amazing, it's so much better than England. I'm like, well, why don't you just fuck off back there?
Fair enough.
So it's like there's a part of me that like has changed, and I have to compartmentalize it when I sit with certain people, and I mean that with respect because they might listen to this. It's like I have to be respectful to their life. And I can't be boasting about how I went to Asia and made hundreds of millions, and they're stuck in their shitty town, and I don't. Yeah. It's difficult to relate, but I have enjoyed trying to rekindle because you've got childhood memories and things you did. You worked together, the fun things you did when you were younger that are hard to recreate in new friendships.
I think it's really important actually as a message. Like I did 11 years at my first company, and I worked every minute that there was to make it succeed, and I pretty much lost every friend that I had. And then there was like a moment with COVID, when COVID happened, and suddenly I couldn't work as hard as I previously worked. I couldn't travel as much as I previously worked. I was just stuck in my flat in London. And I remember it being like a knee jerk. And I was like, oh my God, where are all of my friends? Like, where are all the people I grew up with? Like, I don't have any mates. And suddenly I was like, shit, I really need to put the time in. And so I actually try and say to entrepreneurs, like, try not to silo too much, because when you put your head up for air and you're suddenly like, okay, I am really wealthy, I have succeeded, I have hit all of my dreams, but I literally have no one around me to celebrate it with.
It's cliche, isn't it? It's a cliche, like,
It's the biggest cliche ever. Yeah. Like, you sell your company, you buy the expense. Like, I bought, and it's an embarrassment, but I bought a Richard Mille watch when I sold Verb, which is obviously an expensive watch, and it's the, the thing people want to buy and so forth. It is like the most embarrassing thing I ever did. Like, you don't care about it the second you succeed. The thing I cared about was I hadn't connected with any friends in about 5 years, and then I went on a mission to try and get my friends back.
If you'd have bought them all a Richard Mille watch, they'd have been your friend again.
Immediately.
Yeah.
I think
I'm not sure I made enough money to do that, but yeah.
I've got a couple of friendships, and one good example, a friend of mine, hopefully won't mind me mentioning his name. His name's Dirk, and I met him 25 years ago. And one of the things I love about him, he's German, and that's not what I love about him. But what he said was, the only good thing about the English is you're not French. And from that moment onwards, we became good friends, just laughing about culture. And but one thing is, when he got married, that weekend he got married, I had the biggest event I'd ever done with Credit Suisse out of Hong Kong, worth millions to me, and probably one of the most important projects to my company at the time. And it was the hardest thing in the world. I said to him, I cannot go to your wedding. I've got this work thing, right? The amazing thing, and the reason we're such good friends today, is that he knows me. He understands. He's like, Simon, I know what you're doing is important to you, and you're building a life. And the reason he's still my friend today is because he said, I understand.
As that's friendship without judgment.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I think so. Sometimes it can also be an interesting filter,
which is a hard expectation to put on ordinary people.
Well, yeah,
to be so savvy.
But maybe also, it's, if I was taking your advice, which I think is very sound, I'd probably add something to it. I'd probably say, not only don't lose your friendship, but also work on having the right people around you. For sure. Like, I have worked on that. I've worked on surrounding myself and making the effort with people that I know have the same alignment as me. I like working. I don't want to be embarrassed about working. So I tend to have friends that like working. Yeah. And I know this is really bad, and a lot of people don't agree with this, but this is my opinion. I also I become friends with the people I work with in my company too. Yeah. Like, if I don't like working with someone, they won't be in my company. That's it. And in fact, that's why I have them as equity owners too. So we're in it together. I don't want to be the boss. And I enjoy, one of my sad things when I sold Fluid was I actually accidentally sold my family.
Yeah, for sure.
In a weird twist, right? When I sold it, of course, everyone listening is like, it's an amazing experience to sell your company and that money drop in the bank account. Don't get me wrong. It's like, it's a magical experience. But after about 6 months, I'm like, the people that I work with there, I was like, how you doing, guys? You all right?
Yeah. Why is no one messaging me?
Yeah, well, you're not missing me, remember when we used to go for hikes together and, and so there's a part of me, it was like, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But that's why I probably won't sell a company again. I like building up something with people, and then they're my friends. And I know that a lot of people say, don't say your colleagues or your friends. It's a football team. You can't say anything like friendship. But I really like working with certain people, and I like people that like working, especially around purpose. And I lean into that as friendships now. I thought I was clever when I sold my last company, because what I did was I brought someone else in to run it. And when I sold the company, they didn't need me. I didn't do an earn out. Like, everybody who sold a company normally has to do an earn out. I was clever, accident, genius, and I didn't have to do an earn out, which means the day the money dropped in my account, I no longer had anything to do with the company, unless I wanted to, which I didn't think I did. But that also, like, it's going cold turkey. It's like a relationship breakup.
I had a very similar experience.
Yeah, and I don't mind telling people listening. I cried. I was sad. I had like highs and lows, just like grief. And I did message a few of the people there quite a few times. Are you guys okay? Are they treating you well?
And they're all like, a new number. Who this?
Yeah, who this?
Why is the old boss manager?
Yeah. But I do make friends with the people I work with, and I know it's perhaps not best business advice, but I personally enjoy it. I don't want to work with people. I don't like working with people. That does depend on the business, but I don't like working with people that I don't like, and I wouldn't be friends with. And I don't want to waste time with people I don't like. So everybody in my company has to be my friend if they like it or not.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. I mean,
they got no choice.
The chains that you brought all your prisoners in today look lovely. I mean, they look really comfortable.
That's right. Yeah, they love it.
Very quiet. I
pay them and they have equity, except one person. They have to love me.